I'm filmmaker Joel Gilbert, and you are watching the Paul Leslie Hour.
Are you here? Well, welcome to the Paul Leslie Hour, where every day is a holiday and every meal is a feast. This is episode number 1024, and we're welcoming today Joel Gilbert to talk about the documentary film Michelle Obama 2024. Side note, is it possible that Michelle Obama is the 2024 Democratic Party nominee? Joel Gilbert is a documentary filmmaker. Mr. Gilbert is also a writer, political commentator, and the president of Highway 61 Entertainment. You can support the Paul Leslie Hour simply by visiting www.thepaulleslie.com/support. And we thank you. Now it's time for a timely interview. And it's right here on the Paul Leslie Hour.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're joined by filmmaker, writer, and political commentator, our friend Joel Gilbert. He has a film out. It's entitled Michelle Obama 2024. I just watched this last night. And,
excellent.
then I spent a little bit of time today listening to you sing some Bob Dylan.
Okay, excellent. Excellent.
So everybody has been focusing these days on Joe Biden, Donald Trump. We've had some very historic times right now, an assassination attempt. My question, what's Michelle up to?
Well, I've been following the Obamas for years, and especially Michelle for the past several years. And to me, it's been obvious that she's been positioning herself to become the Democrat nominee in 2024 all this time. And she's done that by copying everything that Barack did to do that he had to do before he ran for the White House. Barack was the keynote speaker who introduced John Kerry at the 2004 Democrat convention. That's the position they give to the person they think will be the nominee at the next convention. Sure enough, there was Michelle introducing Joe Biden in 2020 at the DNC. Barack wrote 2 autobiographies, kind of retelling his life story in a way that would set it up for politics. Michelle did the same thing. She wrote 2 best-selling autobiographies. They're both also on Netflix. And Barack had a voter registration organization in Chicago called Project Vote. Michelle started a voter registration organization called When We All Vote. And if you look at her Twitter account, Michelle's all politics all the time. She's been developing constituent groups like women and minorities for years. So I think she's done everything she needs to do to position herself. She's got 100 million social media followers. She's the most popular person in the country, hundreds of magazine covers, interviews. She's a better politician than Barack, and I think she's primed to become the nominee in Chicago, Michelle's hometown of all places, where they planned the DNC this year.
Such a fascinating hypothesis. And the film starts out, and you really, really lay the groundwork for who Michelle Obama really is. And I have to admit, total ignorance. I always assumed that Michelle Obama was probably somebody because of the way she talks about her early days.
Yeah.
She says things in such a way at times to seemingly she doesn't really say something so explicitly, but she implies that, it was a really, really hard time growing up. But it seems like from the film, the best way to describe her upbringing was a life of privilege.
Yeah, the way most politicians, and that's how you know Michelle's a politician, the most politicians describe their life history and their youth in a different way than is true. So Michelle has just as phony a story as Barack because she's a politician. Michelle's been trying to manipulate minorities and Black voters for years by telling the story that, hey, I'm just one of you. I'm an ordinary Black person. I'm from the South Side of Chicago. I was held back in life because of my skin color. These are the stories she's been pushing for years that the media just reports without any investigation whatsoever. Well, I went to Chicago. I talked to Michelle's classmates, her high school teacher, principal, her University of, Princeton University sociology professor, her mother, her friends, you name it. It's a completely different story. Michelle is not even from the south side of Chicago. She's from South Shore, which is a exclusive community on Lake Michigan. Jesse Jackson, big, beautiful home in South Shore. He never said he was from the south side. Michelle had a terrible relationship with the black community growing up. She didn't have any black friends. Her and her brother refused to study at South Shore High School, 1 block from their house, because it was all black. Her brother goes to an expensive private Catholic school. Michelle goes to a magnet school. And Michelle even talks about in her book getting beat up by the black girls would beat her up and call her an Oreo, which is a racial slur. It meant you're black on the outside, but you're really white on the inside. So Michelle was afraid to go out of her house because the black kids would beat her up. She was afraid of black people. And then I chronicle in her professional career, Michelle always took jobs from white liberals when they were having problems with the black community and couldn't hire a white person to do the dirty work. Michelle would take those jobs. So Michelle made hundreds of thousands of dollars working for the mayor of Chicago. And with Valerie Jarrett, she kicked 20,000 blacks out of their homes, knocked down their houses at Cabrini Green was a project because the Democrat donor developers wanted the land, which was near downtown. And having proven how callous she was toward the black community, Michelle got a job at the University of Chicago Medical Center, where her job was to kick black people out of the emergency room. If you showed up and you were black, Michelle would put you in a van and dump you back on the south side in a clinic and a strip mall. It's called patient dumping. It was illegal. But Michelle denied access to good health care to the black community for money. So Michelle sold out the black community. She has a terrible relationship with them. She didn't have any black friends. So for politics, she tries to manipulate them for power by claiming, oh, I'm just one of you ordinary black folks. Well, black voters don't like people selling them out, and Michelle sold them out. And that's her biggest vulnerability when she runs for president, is the exposure of how she manipulated and exploited the black community for money. And I don't think they're going to appreciate it when they find out about it.
It's a very fascinating documentary, and I watch a lot of documentaries. I really, really enjoyed it. And I'm sure at this point, a lot of the people watching are wondering, how can I watch it? If you could hold up the movie and tell everybody where they can get it.
All right. Well, it's both by the way, it's also a book version on Amazon.com. You can read the book, very, interesting and at length. And the film version is on Amazon Prime Video. It's also on salemnow.com. And you can watch the movie trailer and read all about it and link up to all those places to see it at MichelleObama24.com.
Okay, MichelleObama24.com. It's occurred to me when I was watching your documentary, at the end of it, I was looking at some of the other titles that you've made, and I was surprised. I didn't know your name, but I had seen so many of them. Okay. And to go from something that is universally loved, music, and then to start making political and controversial documentaries. Some of the documentaries you've made have been very controversial. What has that cost you, Joel, to make movies like this?
Well, I don't think my movies are particularly controversial. It's just an investigation of the facts. Now, if you don't like the facts, maybe that would make you feel like this is a controversy, but everything is very, very well researched, interviews on the ground, factual information, research. So I've made films about the Middle East history, Islamic history, the Iranian nuclear program, Dreams from My Real Father, I'm pretty well known for, about Barack Obama's background in Hawaii. I made the case, I think, with a lot of facts and a mountain of evidence that his real biological father was not the Kenyan student that he claimed, but in fact was an American communist who raised him in Hawaii and radicalized him, named Frank Marshall Davis, was his real father. I've made films about, of course, Trump, The Art of the Insult, kind of an entertaining documentary about Donald Trump's 2016 campaign. The Trayvon hoax, about the Trayvon Martin, George Zimmerman case, and I proved that there was a fake witness that was used, Rachel Gentel, the hefty Haitian-American girl that they used to claim she was on the phone with Trayvon and she was his girlfriend. I proved that she was not on the phone. She was not his girlfriend. There was a completely different girl named Diamond Eugene who refused to lie to the police, so they subbed in this other girl. So all my films, I think, are based on research and facts. And I started out making films about music icons like Bob Dylan and Paul McCartney and Elvis Presley. They were very entertaining, a lot of fun. I've got quite a following domestically, internationally, people that know my work. So this is the latest film is Michelle Obama 2024. I think we're several weeks away, but I think Biden is not viable. I think the Democrats are going to get rid of him. Kamala Harris is not a viable replacement. She's not popular. She has no support, including from the Black community. A lot of people don't quite understand that she's not African American. Her mother's from India. Kamala's father's from Jamaica. And Kamala grew up in Canada. And she eventually married a white Jewish guy a couple of years ago. So she has nothing in common with the Black community whatsoever. So I think Michelle is the only viable option who currently polls ahead of Donald Trump.
Very interesting stuff. And it does seem that Joe Biden is not going to be the nominee. I've had people say you're crazy when I've said this, but it just doesn't add up.
People that have followed this that don't watch CNN and MSNBC, if you followed it back in 2020 during the election campaign, I wrote articles about how, Biden couldn't put two sentences together. It really was a joke when he ran for president. The first few debates, he couldn't talk properly. People were saying, why is this guy even running? He lost several primaries, and then he won South Carolina with the help of James Clyburn and the Obama network. And the next day, everybody dropped out. So the fix was in for Biden, I think, from the beginning. And they've effectively covered up his infirmity. There's a group of people running the office of the presidency, and they enjoy doing that. I think probably Barack Obama's one of them that has a tremendous influence, and there are others. And Biden he's been a figurehead this whole time. And finally, the rest of the country is in on it. I think that June debate was very suspicious. It was almost as though his staff or Obama, somebody hung him out to dry, because knowing he was infirm, the strategy would have been to only have a September debate or no debates. But a June debate, I think, was their way of exposing him to the public so they could get rid of him, is what it looks like.
As you explore in the documentary, Michelle Obama is someone who has had an incredibly elite life, and it's not something that just started when her husband was elected president. And yet she's made these statements like about white Americans, y'all run from us. And I've seen her say different things like that. But one of the more compelling things in the movie is you chronologically show that her entire life has involved a moving away from Black communities and into more and more elite circles.
Yeah. Yeah, Michelle Obama and her brother, they're the Black face of white flight. They're the ones that refused to study with other Black people. They're the ones that ran away from Black people. They were afraid of them. They got beat up by them because of their attitude. That's why Michelle was called an Oreo by the kids, because they said, you're Black on the outside, but you're really a white girl. When Barack met her, he wrote in his book that her family was like Leave It to Beaver. And he said Michelle reminded him of his white grandmother from Kansas. So Michelle had nothing to do with the Black community, and she always ran away from them. So, yeah, that's why she tells these phony stories that are so over the top, because Michelle doesn't know. She never experienced anything like that. So she tells these wild, crazy stories to sucker Black voters into thinking she's one of them, because she's so insecure about her relationship with the Black community. So, look, Michelle is a better politician than Barack, because she grew up in a political family. Her father was a politician who was a precinct captain in Chicago. Michelle was best friends with Jesse Jackson's daughter, Santita. Those were the only Black friends Michelle had if you were an elite. So Michelle kind of grew up in Jesse Jackson's house when he was running for president. So she's always been around politics. She marries her father. She marries a politician, Barack. So they moved to Hyde Park, where all the white people were. She goes to Princeton. Even to this day, they have a house in Martha's Vineyard where all the white liberal elites are located. So, the Obamas really never had anything to do with the Black community. And it's interesting, their relationship, because Barack actually wrote a letter we have to his Asian American mixed race girlfriend. saying he had to break up with her because he wanted to find a black wife for politics. So I think the attraction to Michelle is that she really was an Oreo. She was black on the outside but white on the inside. And meanwhile, for Michelle, who didn't want anything to do with the black community, Barack was biracial, so he made her feel more white. So they each got something out of that, and that was the initial attraction.
And the film also explores the fact that both of the Obamas, in fact, have radical ties.
Yeah, well, of course, I've chronicled in my film I mentioned earlier, Barack was raised in Hawaii by a member of Communist Party USA out of Chicago, Frank Marshall Davis, who I believe is the real father. He was tied heavily to Bill Ayers from the Weather Underground. Meanwhile, Michelle, after Harvard, got a job at Sidley Austin Law Firm where she worked with Bill Ayers' wife, Bernadine Dorn, for 2 years. And I've chronicled in my film how Bernadine Dorn really was the head of the Weather Underground. And she indoctrinated Michelle with all this anti-American rhetoric. Everything that Michelle said on the 2008 campaign trail about America, about how awful it is and how you can't pay for anything, you can't afford anything, how unfair everything is. It's all straight out of 1960s Bernadine Dorn. And Michelle got in trouble. No one was really paying attention. And that one time she said, "Oh, for the first time in my life, I'm proud of my country because Barack won a primary." That's when the media started paying attention. And then she said, oh, I hate politics. I just want to be the mom in chief, because she was so political. She was the co-candidate. She was saying things like, Barack and I, our campaign, what we're going to do in the White House. It was a co-candidacy, not too different from the Clintons, really. And then Michelle took a step back because she got the campaign in trouble.
It's so interesting about not caring about politics or not liking politics, and you look at her Twitter feed and it's all politics and
politics.
Yeah. The question that I had that really, really loomed after seeing this documentary, Michelle Obama 2024, you go to the bookstore and it's true, Michelle Obama has all these books that she's written that have been written about her, the cover of countless magazines. It's a cult of personality.
Correct.
Why do you think it is? Why do you think she has become such a cult figure?
Well, I think she was a cult of personality from the beginning. As soon as when Barack was running for president, they elevated her. They put her on all these magazine covers. It wasn't like she wasn't interested in the publicity. She agreed to be on hundreds of magazine covers, hundreds of interviews, talk shows, sitcoms. She relished in the publicity. She loves it. So I think they saw her as a potential presidential candidate one day. And that's why they helped her create this cult of personality with all those books you saw in the movie, where they wrote children's books about her life story, her childhood, her playing piano. Everything about her is this kind of Maoist cult figure. That's why I'm so convinced that instead of just retiring or something, Michelle set out to copy what Barack did to become president. The DNC keynote speaker, writing the autobiographies, the voter registration group. She's positioned herself perfectly. And to me, it looks like Biden's on the way out, and there's no viable option except for Michelle.
Well, Joel Gilbert, it's been great spending time with you. Thank you so much on behalf of our viewers and listeners. Any last words before we part?
Yeah, I mean, go to michelleobama24.com. You can watch the movie trailer. It'll link you up to where you could watch the movie or get the book version. And, here we are. Trump has had, tumultuous week getting shot at. He got his, case in Florida dismissed. There's a lot. You got the RNC going on this week. There's a lot going on, but the Democrats are addicted to power. They're addicted to the executive office. They're addicted to the money and the way to impose their ideology on the country that didn't even vote for it. So they're not going away. And I think they'll get rid of anything that stands in their way. And right now, Joe Biden is standing in their way, in their opinion, because he's not a plausible candidate. They're going to be stuffing ballots and harvesting ballots and mailing in ballots. And if Biden wins, it just won't look very plausible. No one's going to believe it. So I think that's the main reason they need to get him out of the way. And if Michelle Obama won, people would say, well, I guess I believe it because she's so popular. So look for a lot of development in the next few weeks, and keep your eyes on Michelle Obama.
Well, thank you so much. You're an undoubtedly interesting man. It's been a pleasure to talk to you.
All right. Thanks so much.
We thank you and appreciate you dropping in for the Paul Leslie Hour today. You know, you can help the Paul Leslie Hour in our mission to provide independent media content like this by visiting www.thepaulleslie.com/support. We truly thank you. This is your announcer speaking. Performance of The Entertainer intro song and Corina Corina outro song, courtesy of John Primorano. Well, that's it for today. So until next time, be safe and be good.